Hey guys, how's it going and welcome back. Well, I've had this computer since April of 2020 and I thought, let's do a final review. I've basically tortured this poor little thing day in and day out, and there's times I've just left it running all the time. Depending on what I'm doing, especially if I'm doing, like a really slow upload because I'm stuck on 3G for a while. Yeah, it takes forever to upload stuff on 3G. Anyways, so I figure we're going to the BIOS first, give you a basic rundown here. Now this is an Mdg Apton system. Basically it's, I guess, one of their custom built dealies that they do time to time, and you got to keep an eye on their website for gamer systems and check out their specs. And the better the specs are, the better you're going to do. So, anyways, this has got an MSI motherboard in it, obviously. AMD Ryzen 7 2700 8-core processor, 16 gigs of RAM currently. And with 16 gigs of RAM, you can do just about anything, which is fine. I've had absolutely zero issues, like nothing. But I still would like to eventually max out the RAM if I keep this current configuration long enough. But so far it's treated me really well. So as an 8-core processor, it also has a CPU clock frequency of 3.2 gigahertz. It does have an overclock range. We'll look a little bit into that shortly because we're going to have to go onto the internet to get the specs on that. But it does have 2 memory slots on the motherboard only. So we are going to have some limitations, obviously, on how big of chips we can whack into this thing, but we do have a huge variety of RAM speeds that the board and the processor are going to support, even beyond what's in here right now. So anyways, let's take a look at the memory in here. Current RAM frequency is 2400 megahertz. It's Kingston RAM. 2 8-gig SIMs are installed. For our storage capacity, I had put a bunch of small SSDs in this thing. I mean, you can fit a whack load of hard drives in this thing. It is crazy. I finally decided, you know what, I'm really not using all these extra drives. So let's just keep in here what I really want for now. So our main hard drive, of course, this thing comes with a 120 gig SSD, which has your operating system on it, which, forget it. I mean, 120 gig is useless. But they do give you a 1 terabyte dump drive, and that's fine. And it's a mechanical 7200 RPM. So I did put the 1 terabyte mechanical drive back in as a dump drive for now. It is eventually going to go to a terabyte SSD. But for my main hard drive, instead of having a SSD drive cable connection, I wanted really fast. So I've got an XPG Gammix S11 Pro, half a terabyte M.2 NVMe, basically drive or stick, because it has an NVMe slot right on the motherboard, and I've got over 3000 megabits per second read and write on this thing. And it is just phenomenal. Like, the boot time is just great on this thing. I'm really happy with it. And just running programs, everything, it's pretty good. So anyways, you can see our CPU temperature is about 34 Celsius on the CPU. The motherboard's at 36 Celsius. We also do have fan control where we can do our own little overrides if we want to. We've got a flash area, favorites area, hardware monitor. This is like a click BIOS system, which is kind of neat. So you just navigate with your mouse. All your drive supports here. Now, your boot priority, you have to make sure that your actual boot drive is first in the chain, and whatever you want to do with the rest of them is fine. So anyways, let's get out of the BIOS. So we'll just click out. You have not made any changes to the BIOS. Okay, so yeah, whatever. Let's just get out of here and reboot the system. Now, of course, it is going to make me type in my password, and for that we need to go away from the camera for that. So it did come with a 27-inch display as well, which is an LG display. The main tower, the gamer type keyboard that's wired, as well as the mouse, of course. I did install my own LED fans. They don't give you much for fans in the computer, so it's kind of like, well, we could really use some more cooling in this thing. Okay, so we are now back in. So let's get back into the web. Now, because I hotspot sometimes, I don't allow priority auto connection to the web. Now in here we've got down below some programs that are part of this motherboard, one of which is for video graphics, of course, and other things that this program also does. It keeps an eye on your recent games and tracks your average FPS or frames per second, total hours played, that sort of thing. And my two top games that I do play a lot on this are Far Cry, which is the original Far Cry, which has been out for a long time, and I know they've got like several versions since, but this is still my favorite one. And I'm getting 185.4 frames per second. Need for Speed Undercover, again an older game but still working quite well, 164.1 frames per second. And this is based on all the graphics being cranked right to the very hilt on both programs. So, and these things are not farting, they're not lagging, they're not slowing anything down whatsoever. You know, it just goes. Now this does have a Radeon series 4 gig video card in it, which seems to be more than enough for pretty much anything I throw at it. And I do have a whack load of other games installed into the computer as well, which I've got an entire list of all this stuff here. A lot of 3D stuff, shoot 'em up stuff, killing games, that's kind of like what I'm into. Anyway, so the video card is an RX 570 series. You can go into performance area here into tuning, and this is where I have my fan speed for the video card set at about 2282 RPM basically, and it runs that constant. So my video card is sitting at 29 degrees. I don't often see that temperature go up very much at all. I think the hottest I ever had that card was maybe about 40 degrees tops. And you can go in here and you can mess around with the GPU tuning, VRAM tuning, all that sort of stuff if you really know what you're doing, or just leave things at, you know, default. Now I go into the manual mode just because of the fan tuning thing, and I want to set things at different temps for, you know, rocketing the fan full blast. I've never gotten anywhere near the temps, so we're all good and safe there. So that's great. In here we have what's called X Boost, and in here it keeps an eye on all of our drives that are attached, including I have a USB reader as well, because it doesn't come with a card reader, and there's no room to put an internal one unless you give up a CD player. Now the CD burner did not come, it's actually a DVD burner, did not come with the system. That I bought extra because I do have programs on CD, need to get them on and off, and I'd rather have internal. The only drawback of an internal ROM in this particular tower casing is you can't put a fan right up in the very front. There's no support, won't fit. So if you were going to go without, then you could have another fan there. So I've put in total of 4 fans into the case. I've got 2 blue ones up front, 1 blue one at the top, and at the very back I've got a blue one which you can't see. But this keeps an eye on your hard drives and everything, and you can do like USB speed up, storage boost, which is your hard drives, BR boost. That is something where they give you a little thing here and they talk to you about, please check if your system fits minimum system requirements as below. NVIDIA GeForce GTX 970, AMD Radeon R9 290 or better, CPU Intel Core, blah 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 blah. If your system can't meet the requirement, please consider that if you wish to proceed, this setting might be harmful to your system. So we're going to say no. But we can nonetheless go in here and mess around with the processor. So right now it's set up for gaming. We can go to Office, and of course you'll see certain areas of the CPU get pushed even harder. Home theater, of course, doesn't use as much. File transferring, video editing. This is like priority stuff, right? You know, when you think about it on the home office front, you reduce a little bit of your audio performance, but you gain more CPU performance, more graphic performance, storage performance, and your power consumption is going to go up a little bit. But on the game mode, everything's pretty much equalized. And that's pretty much where I keep it all the time. This is based, as we saw earlier in the BIOS, or not in the BIOS, but the program where it showed my FPS on the games. That's based on this setting. I could probably push them a little bit harder if I go into the office mode, which I don't know why you need that much horsepower for office stuff, but whatever. So let's fire up some games here. Now, first of all, we're going to fire up Minecraft. Okay, Minecraft is quite the fun game, and I also don't want to play this online, so we're going to do that offline. Now, I do have Optifine installed in this thing. Come on. Did I choke you out? There we go. Alright, play offline. With Optifine installed, it is going to definitely slow down your boot process on Minecraft no matter how fast your computer is. And you'll see it just kind of rockets, and then it's going to just get stalled for a few seconds before it continues to load. But I do have everything right full to the nines on this thing. And I am having no issues whatsoever, which is just fantastic. Now, the video card in this, while this is booting, the video card also supports a DVI hookup, HDMI, which we're using now, so we get like 1920 by 1080p for gaming. And it does have a display port as well on the back of the video card. And you'll notice I've got a 22-inch monitor off the side here, which I was using originally on the MacBook Air I'd first bought. That's why I'd bought it. And then, of course, that went back, and I got a regular iMac. But there's an adapter I can get for display port to HDMI, and I'm going to be hooking my second monitor into this tower probably in the next couple weeks. I just got to, get some time ahead and order the parts from Amazon or connectors, because I'm also going to be ordering connectors for my Mac, so I can also share this secondary monitor when I'm not using it on this. I can share it with my Mac as a secondary, and that'll keep things going. And as you can see, we're ready to finally play. It does take a while, with Optifine. Without Optifine, this thing would have been booted like a long time ago. So this is a house I've been working on. And as you can see, even with full out graphics turned on, this thing is pretty much a rocket. It's not bogging down. Now it does have to draw itself, of course, as we know, but it's doing a wonderful job. It's already got a lot pre-drawn already, so it does work quite quickly. Minecraft is pretty nice on this thing. So let's go pound some bricks here. And we don't have any problems at all. Now I do like the large display. Now I am also running this display at its top performance level, which is 75 Hertz. You can change to 60 Hertz, 50 Hertz, and so I pushed it to the max, of course. So that's a little bit of Minecraft, so let's fire up Far Cry. I love Far Cry. I've beaten this game like 10 million times. And, well, not quite that many, but you get the idea. And it's always a challenge. Because of the built-in AI, things change. So if you're using the AI feature in it, it learns from you, and it can be pretty sneaky. So it is kind of a game you can continually re-challenge and re-challenge yourself with, which is kind of fun. And you can go to the different hardness levels as well. Like I'm medium. And even though I chose the easy for this, but it's still a really fantastic game. Graphics being right to the hilt are really nice. The water looks very realistic, that sort of thing. And depending where you are in the ocean when you're swimming around, You're going to find like marine life and everything down there, which is cool. Now this level I'm on is not an easy one to deal with, but the graphic quality is really good. I'm dead. It's a very hard level to get through, even at the best of times. So that's a little bit about the games there, and of course we do have Need for Speed as well. I'll show you that quickly. Pretty much every game I've thrown at this thing and maxed out graphics, I've had zero issues at all. So, I mean, you really, you know, an 8-core machine is nice, even though, I mean, games are not going to use all those 8 cores, right? Not going to happen. But the video card even is 4 gigs is more than adequate, you know. At least for all the stuff I'm running. So, there may be games out there that are going to want a lot more. Now, I choose this kind of a view because for me it's easier to drive. But we can switch camera modes. Now, I don't like this view because for a 3D video game, that doesn't look so realistic, like real life would. And then you can push it ahead a little bit, and then you can go to here. Now, with the hood, that looks a lot more realistic, because on a real car, you're going to see your hood. Smack.
Dispatch 118, I got a dispute involving a jogger and a dog walker. Jogger says...
Get out of my way. Get out of my way.
Does the jogger require medical attention?
No, not that I can see, but their friends are showing up and there might be a fight here soon.
Copy that.
So, all in all, I mean, it's great. Like, the clouds are nice, the sky is nice, buildings are great, detail is there. You know, and even though this is an older game, it's still great. And there are newer games with much better graphics. I just really haven't had the time to actually get into more and more gaming. Even nowadays, I don't get a ton of gaming time. But, I mean, it's still there, right? So, are you sure you want to exit? Yes, I want to exit. Okay, so we're gonna do a little bit of surfing here, but before we do that, I got to close some browsers that have my identity showing. So, keeping you in the dark, I know. Sorry about that. Okay, so we will go YouTube. Alright. I don't like people seeing my email browsers being open and stuff, so that's why you got put into the night mode for a second. So this is YouTube, of course, and let's go check out a few websites for surfing. Now, we're on an LTE network that, believe it or not, is not the world's fastest. In fact, let's see what our current speeds are this morning. Now, we live out in the country. We're on a Rogers Rocket Hub, which is cell data run, right? And my Wi-Fi adapter is actually rated for up to 1200 megabits per second, and on the 5 gigahertz area, I'm getting 300. And this is the kind of speeds we get out in the country with this Rocket Hub, which is not as good as it can be. I know right in the main town of Boston, which is like, 5 clicks from here, we're close enough to the tower, I can ping this meter over 100 megabits per second easily. So because we're basically living in a valley, we're down low and the tower is like, so far away from us, this is kind of what we're getting. But even at these speeds, which do improve at times. Yesterday when I did the speed test, actually it was first thing in the morning, around 6 in the morning, I actually got speeds of over 19 megabits per second up and down, which was actually pretty phenomenal, because it usually doesn't get anywhere near that. But that's an idea of that. And so even for surfing at these speed rates, you know, it does actually quite well, you know, for loading pages and whatnot, getting stuff done. Let's try a site that I haven't been to in a long time. Well, let's go look at this on Amazon. Oh, that page is gone. I guess I have to delete that link now. Bye-bye. Go look for you elsewhere. Archery Shop. So, loading, page not found. Oh, continue shopping. That was something I had favorited. I guess they're out of stock. Let's go somewhere else then. How about Wolverine? There you go. This place is out in, I think it's BC or something. Now this site's going to probably take a few seconds to load, but that's okay. No big deal. Airgun source, my favorite place for pellet guns. Okay, boom. Loads pretty quick, so pretty impressive there. So surfing the net is fine. Now, as far as our processor goes, let's take a look at the motherboard specs. Now, the motherboard in this is actually the MSI, come on, load, A320M-A Pro Max board. That's the board that is actually in this computer. And if we go into the specifications area, Ryzen processor CPU, socket is an AM4, and we said we were running, what, 2400 megahertz, okay? So we can still put in 266, and that's by JDEC, and by XAMP OC mode, we can also use these RAM speeds right up to 3200 megahertz. Memory is dual, slots are 2, maximum memory in this computer is 64 gigs. If I do any upgrades to memory in this, I don't think I'm going to bother going past 32 gigabytes. There is nothing that I will ever run, even in higher end gaming, once I get the time to play more video games, where I'm going to even need anywhere near 64 gigs of RAM. Because even at 16 gigs, I'm having no issues with the current games maxed to the hilt. Right? So I'm kind of thinking, well, 32 gigs, I think I'd be pretty happy there, you know? But I can go to 64 on this board. And the only reason there's a limitation of 64 gigs is because of only having 2 memory slots, you know? I mean, this was not a super expensive computer, so they didn't put the most expensive parts in it. But they did put a really nice processor in it, I'll give them that, you know? But, and it does have gigabit LAN, it does have several USB 3.2 ports. You've actually got 2 on the front, one's a Gen 1 Type A's, and of course USB 3.2 ports in the rear, there's 4 of them. There's also 2.0 ports in the front, up to 4 are supported. I have 1 of each on the front actually, but you can have more depending on the case. So there's a lot more USB ports I can access that I don't have right now hooked in. But I do have a total of 6 out the back of the motherboard because they're built into the board. You know, your audio ports in the rear, it's all Realtek hardware, which is nice. Realtek's been around forever. They're a great company. DirectX 12, HDMI is 1. Now there is a built-in HDMI port. However, when you're using a video card, it is disabled. I tried that because I'm like, I want to use this other monitor. Why don't I just plug into the motherboard and use its part along? And no, as long as you got a video card in there, it's disabled. So I'm like, So I'm going to get an adapter and just go off the video card, off the display port, and then I'll use my second screen that way. So I got to get my money out of this screen, you know. I mean, hey, come on, I bought it for a purpose, but it didn't work out that way in the end. So... But anyway, so overall, the system is fantastic. If you were thinking about building a custom system, even similar, maybe a different case than mine, It's a great motherboard, and if you don't need like 400 terabytes of RAM kind of thing, 64 gigs is going to more than do you for anything for RAM if you do max it out. Video card wise, you can pretty much jam anything you want into the board for a video card. Just keep in mind when you use heavier cards, you're going to have a support leg under that card. Otherwise you can cause some problems. Okay, at least that's what I've been reading up on. But the 4 gig card that's in here right now for video is actually quite good. As much as I'd love to have an NVIDIA card, prices are kind of like ching, and really I don't need it. At least not yet. I've not found a requirement to even think about upgrading the video card yet. So, because I don't get a ton of time to just sit around on my buns and just play video games all the time, right? So, being that is the way it is, yeah, I'm happy with what it is. It's great, and I'm sure it's going to last me for a long time yet. But should the need arise, then eventually prices will come down, or I'll find a good used NVIDIA card with 16 gigs of video on it, and the processor I think I'm more than good with. 8-core, 3.2 gigahertz. That seems to work really well. Now, what we want to find out is the top speeds of this processor. So, RYZ Ryzen 2700 8-core 3.2 gigahertz specs. Because there's always a turbo. So, that's the 2700X, mine's the 2700. 2700X. Well, why did it, oh yeah, put the X in there. Okay, so here we go. We have a base clock frequency of 3.2 gigahertz, and we have a maximum boost speed when it gets turned on to 4.1 gigahertz. And it has a level 3 16 meg cache. Pretty snappy processor, I would say. So you figure at 3.2 at 8 cores, base clock, if you're not turning on the extra speed, that's still really phenomenal, right? 4.1 gigahertz, when software demands it, that's a pretty high jump from 3.2 to 4.1, and you've got 8 cores doing that all at the same time. Now, the remote chance that you're ever going to need that extra boost is pretty slim. There's not a lot of software out on the planet right now that is going to crank this processor up into the high levels. So it's there if it needs it, it'll turn itself on higher. Otherwise, you're at 3.2 for all 8 cores. And even most of your programs out there do not even require an 8-core processor. Unless you're doing like super heavy duty and video editing, like massive video editing, right? But then you're going to need not just CPU, you're going to need video support as well that can handle that together. So, and the nice thing about Windows computers is if you do need more of something, it is so easy to just rip something out and throw something bigger in. That is a big advantage of Windows computers. They're very easy that way. Mind you, you can do that with Mac Pro Towers, just as easily. It's just the other Apple systems that are kind of more confined and not so easily to upgrade. But either way, that's still pretty snappy. So in the overall picture of the program here, guys, a 27-inch display is actually quite nice to have for a gamer screen. If you want bigger, go bigger. 22 inch is kind of, but I'm using it as a secondary, so I'm not too worried too much. But I do find, though, with 1080p screens, the resolution capability just isn't there. The video card could certainly push it, but the screen doesn't have the capability, okay? But gamers are wanting to not play with super, super tight, high resolution, a lot of them, and that's fine. I think the picture quality could be far better with a far better screen, as always. But I didn't pay a king's ransom for the system, and I don't need that kind of high-end picture in front of my face, although it would be nice. But it is a pretty snappy machine nonetheless. There is always room for improvement. More RAM, definitely. Getting rid of that mechanical drive forever and going to a 1 terabyte SSD in place of it. Now all I use that 1 terabyte drive for is just simply for backing up software, keeping it as a backup. I do not keep anything on my main C drive, and I would suggest you do the same. Do not keep anything on your C drive other than programs that you install to run. And a 0.5 terabyte for me is more than adequate at this time, because I haven't really done much as far as filling it up either. I've still got 381 gigs free out of that drive. I've pretty much half filled my terabyte with backup stuff. But I don't even keep stuff in any of these folders at all. Okay, everything gets dumped right to the backup drive. This way, if something does ever happen and that SSD goes down on me, at least everything that I've worked on over the years is safe, right? I even keep copies of all my YouTube videos as well, so if anything ever happened to the YouTube server, I have virtually all my videos that I can just re-upload, and put my channel back to normal if anything ever happened to the Google servers. So, nice to back up your videos too, because otherwise you start from scratch, and that sucks. Been there once. But overall, great system. Now, I've had it for just under a year, and I still say it's a fantastic computer. However, I am going to recommend getting yourself a DVD burner. I got mine off Amazon for, I think it was like less than $50. It was pretty cheap. I think I have a video on that, and you'll find out the exact price. But even though I don't use the burner much, it's there when I need it, which is great. I would say, depending on your dust environment in your house, blow the dust out of the thing maybe once every couple months. I just finally blew the dust out the other day for, I guess, the second time since I've owned it. Which is not bad. Built-in Wi-Fi does not come with these towers. You will have to have your own USB dongle for Wi-Fi, or get a Wi-Fi internal card put in. I'm thinking of ditching the dongle and going to a card eventually, but a much higher performance card than what the dongle provides. But for now, this is working. The video card that is supplied with this thing, you can buy the card anywhere. Just keep in mind you have one HDMI, one DVI, and of course you have the display port. And the display port, you're going to need a display port to HDMI adapter to hook in a second monitor. Unless you have a display port monitor, well then just get display port cable. But overall, definitely worth the money. Definitely a performer, definitely quality. It is staying together. I've never had any issues before with MSI products. I've always liked their products. This is actually my first, no, I think this would be my second AMD system, okay? In like over the last, well, not quite 2 decades, but pretty close to it anyway. But generally I do prefer Intel systems, but for an AMD, this thing is like phenomenally crazy. It is definitely a very fast machine, very good machine, so I'm quite happy there. The only thing I think I'd want to change is I do eventually want to find a clear tower case that's also a mid case, because I like to see the parts inside and other things that light up. Like my processor fan has a light on it, and it's like I can't see it. I don't have a side window. But I want to get a clear case because I love transparent cases. And years ago, when I was selling custom computers, I actually had a clear case and I loved it. But it was also a very big case, but it had a lot in there. So it was a pretty high-end built tower that I did. Anyway, so I can't remember. I think I rated this thing at one time at around a 4.5, and I think I'm going to stick with a 4.5 on this thing. The only restrictions on it is you are limited to 64 gigs of memory tops on the current motherboard, and that's fine. The screen, as far as being 1080p, I mean, I knew what I was getting, so I wasn't going to be expecting the same kind of graphic output quality as my Mac has, which is like oodles beyond this thing. graphically. But I mean, you can buy a really nice display to get you to higher resolutions and faster hertz levels and all that sort of thing. But you're going to be putting out a ton of cash, right? It's all on what you want to do. But for everything I do, this thing actually does work quite adequately. Even doing video editing, I'm actually running, believe it or not, a really old version of Windows Movie Maker. Because when they went and kiboshed it, I got the non-internet installer just in time before it got ripped off the entire web. So I keep a few copies of that kicking around. Backups here, backups there, and my wife uses it as well from time to time. But I use it on here from time to time too, because it's really good for quick, dirty editing. Where I just want to go zip, zip, done. If I want to do something a little more intensive, that's why I have a Mac. Because Movie Maker, it just doesn't handle those tasks. And besides which, iMovie is pretty much... I personally think that iMovie would be second in behind Final Cut Pro. Final Cut Pro definitely surpasses it, I'll give you that. But it's in that kind of thing, right? So if I want to do something, really, really high-end for a video editing job and, additions and stuff, that's what iMovie for me is for. But for quick and dirty, I love using this program. It makes things so simple. Anyway, so that's what we got. That's where I'm at. Now, MDG does have the company in Canada, mdg.ca, or you can go to mdg.com, which I believe is their US store. In fact, if you want a little quick preview of what they got going on right now, MDG. Now, this is where you finance computers. So if you don't have, oodles of money in your bank account, you go to these guys. You do pay a little bit more money, which is fine. But they do change their stuff almost, it seems, on a weekly basis. See, Asus is trying to get into the Apple look, eh? It's kind of crazy. A lot of people are trying to go for it because people love the iMac systems, right? So a lot of companies are trying to do their all-in-one thing. So when you're looking at the systems, look at the specs, which is a big thing. Like, what are you getting for specs? Now, none of these, of course, are going to be gamer systems right now. They do have some gamer laptops currently. The Asus, I believe it's the Rogue. Desktops, laptops. So you got the Asus Rogue, Lenovo Legion. I wouldn't even bother with the Asus N5000, but definitely the Rogue. And they do have a club subscriber price, so if you buy their, it's a couple of bucks a month for their subscriber program, then you get like a few $100s off as a club subscriber, right? Off the price of the machine. And it's pretty good for bi-weekly payments, or you can go by the month with them, that sort of thing. And we've actually bought a few computers from them, and we've had no problems with them. It's been great doing business with them. But like I said, you will pay a little bit more because you are financing, as opposed to just going out to the store and paying retail. Like even the Rogue Strix here, they're asking $1849. That's only about, that's club subscriber. That's only about $200 more roughly than what you can buy outright at Staples. Now keep in mind, my channel is Canadian prices unless otherwise specified. Non-club subscriber, if you don't want to get into their club, is $23.99. Really good laptop though. I've looked at it a lot, and it's a really awesome gamer laptop. I mean, if I was going to buy a gamer laptop right now, that's what I would buy. I would buy this Rogue Strix. So it's a pretty good little system. But on the end, we are out of here. Thanks so much for watching and hanging out for this final review. I hope it wasn't too long for some people. But hey, we got to do these things, right? So, yeah, stay tuned for more. Catch ya.